Hi everyone, welcome back to yet another lesson in Python programming. In our previous lesson, we delved into the world of working with APIs in Python programming. In today's lesson, we're going to extend the functionality of our Python program with additional methods. Now, the objectives for today's lesson is as follows. We'll first extend our application with new methods as mentioned before, and these methods include the put, the post, and the delete methods when working with APIs. So, without further ado, let's dive right into our practical demonstration. In our previous lesson, we started working with the get method using the fast API framework. So what I'll do is simply create some of the previous code and then we'll work from there. So I'll start with importing my fast API framework or library. So I'll say from fast API, import the fast API library. Great. Next, I'll create that app variable we had previously. I'll set this equal to fast API. And then on a new line, I'll simply just paste a very similar code snippet from our previous lesson. And if we remember correctly, this snippet over here allowed us to build a very basic API where we get the data, and that data is this JSON object over here. So let's just test this out one more time. In my terminal over here, I'll simply run uv corn main app -- reload. Great. And now I'll listen in on this local server over here, and this is the data we had previously. The one thing that I did not show you in our previous lesson is that we don't really have to look at the raw data in this state. If anything, with fast API, we can actually look at this data through an interface. So at the end of this URL over here, I'm going to tack on /docs. And now if I run this, notice that I have an interface where I can actually view the data. So if I click down on this over here and I click on try it out, if I click execute, notice that I get that data as a response body over here. Code 200 normally means success. And if you look at the data over here, this is exactly as is when we have the raw data. Great. Also notice that in this example, this is a get method, and that is the method we built inside of Python. So what about put, post, as well as delete? How do these methods work when using fast API? Let's take a look. The next method we want to experiment with is the put method, and this is going to update data inside of our API. So I'll call the app decorator once again, app.put in this case, and not get. And then over here, I need to supply a path and a parameter. So I'm going to tack on the path job title, because in this lesson, that's what we are going to be working with. We are going to update the job title over here. And then I'll add another slash over here inside of the string. And inside of my curly brace, this is where I'll pass data so that fast API can capture that data and update our object, our JSON object. So I'll set this to job underscore title as well. And then I'm simply going to create a new async function over here. And I'll say define this as put underscore data, which requires one parameter, and that's going to be job underscore title. And that is going to be of type string. Great. I'll add a colon over here. And on a new line, I'm going to simply just print the job title. And I want to create a list as well so that I can tack on various lists when we get to the post method. So at the top of my script over here, just under my fast API object, I'm going to create a list of jobs. And I'm going to set this equal to a list like that. Great. Now coming back to my put method over here, I'm going to append whatever job title is being passed. So on a new line over here, I'll say list of jobs dot append the job title, which will be passed through as a parameter. And then I'll essentially just return job title as a string over here, job title. And I need to also add my colon over here, because this is a key pair value. Do keep that in mind. This is also a dictionary or a JSON object, and that is going to be job title. And that's it. That's all that's required for the put method. We also want to make sure that our path is being referenced correctly. So over here, I'll add a /, because if we don't, the path is not going to be referenced correctly, and therefore we will receive an error. And now if I head over to that localhost URL, if I click on this, and if I tack on docs at the end over here, I have access to that interface. So notice that we now have a put method included over here. If we expand this and we open this up, we try this, we execute, notice that we retrieve the full JSON object over here. For the put method, since we are only going to be updating the job title, what we'll retrieve instead is just the job title key pair value. Let's see what this looks like. So if I scroll down to the bottom and I expand this and I click try it out and I change the job title to technology, this will now update from engineer to technology. And if I execute this, we have a 200 code, which means successful. And notice that the job title now says technology instead of engineer. Wonderful. So let's move on to the post method. Now back here in PyCharm, I'm going to create a new decorator, and this is going to be app.post, because I'm now going to add a record to my object. And then I'm simply going to provide a new path over here as well. I'm going to add a string /, very, very important. If you omit this, you might just run into an error. And I'll simply add the path called post data. And on a new line over here, I'll create an async function, and I'll define this function as post underscore data. This requires one parameter, which will also be job underscore title. Keep in mind that this is also a local variable, which is a parameter, and it's going to be of type string, which is quite important. And I'll add my colon. On a new line, I'm going to call the list of jobs, and I'll dot append, which means add to the list, the job title that's going to be passed through. And then I'm simply just going to return over here the job title object or dictionary. So we need our curly braces over here. And I'll simply say the key is job title and the value to be passed is list of jobs. Great. So now we can save this code and make sure that our server is still running. Excellent. And now if we head back into our application, let's refresh this and let's collapse this. Notice that we now have a post method on our API as well. And if I expand this, click try it out, I'll add a new job over here, and let's say marketing, for example. And if I execute this, we have success. Notice that we have marketing over here. So now I'll add another one. I'm going to add technology again. And if I execute this, we have marketing as well as technology. Notice that the instance here is not saved. So before, when I updated using the put data, the instance was not saved. However, now with the post data, this is a new instance, and I can tack on another one if I wanted to. So let's say I wanted to execute this once again. I can simply come back to the top of my post method, and I can add engineer over here. And if I execute now, I have marketing, technology, as well as engineer. Let's do one more. Let's work with the delete method. Now back here in my IDE, I need to create one more decorator, and that's going to be app.delete. And over here, I'm going to supply a parameter. And remember, this is going to be the path / first. I'll call delete data over here. And then I'll add in another parameter, which is going to be job title, because we are going to pass this through our fast API interface. And I'll use curly brace over here. And then I'll call job underscore title like this. And then on a new line, I'll create an async function, define this function as delete underscore data. And I'm going to pass in a parameter for this function, which is going to be underscore job title. And this is going to be of type string as well. I'll add my colon over here. On new line, I'll say list of jobs dot remove, because now we are not adding or pending, we are removing. So I'll say remove whatever is being passed in as the job title. and then do a simple return over here and open my curly brace, and I'm going to return the job title. So I need that object once again, that JSON object, job title, and I'm going to pass in list of jobs over here. I'll save this, and now let's refresh our Fast API. The first thing I want to do though is I'm going to put data. So we'll do everything from scratch. So I'll say try it out. Remember, engineer is what we currently have. I'll say technology is what I want instead. I'll execute that. We've got a success. And now I'm going to post data. And I'll try this out. And I'll say marketing over here. And I'll execute that. Notice we have technology and marketing because we are within one instance. So now we are adding to the job title list over here. I'll do one more. I'll do engineer. And I'll execute over here. And now we have technology, marketing, and engineer. And now let's say we wanted to remove one of these. We can simply come down over here, expand the delete method, and I'm going to try out, and then I'll delete marketing, and this should remove from my list the marketing job. So if I execute now, we have success, and now we've removed something from our list. And this is how we can work with APIs in Python programming. And that brings us to the end of today's very brief lesson. In summary, we learned how to get data from an API. We also learned how to update data using the put method to an API. We also learned how to post data or add data to our API. And lastly, we learned how to delete data from our API. Now, APIs are very, very powerful, especially when you want to build machine learning models or interface between a database and another application. So I really hope that you found this basic introduction to APIs very, very helpful. My challenge to you is to experiment with APIs, build your own applications, and learn how to integrate APIs such as Fast API into your programming environment.